Hi everyone, it's Amanda, and today I am going to wrap up the books that I've read since my last wrap up. I used to do monthly wrap ups and then I wanted to do weekly wrap ups, and I am just not good at sticking to any kind of video recording schedule. It's just been really difficult. So I'm just going to do them as I can. So today I have a lot of books to show, and I'm going to try to be fairly brief with each description, but we'll see how that goes. I apologize about the lighting. I know that it's a little bit different. It's not the best. I usually film in the daytime, or I try to film during the day, but that's why I haven't been making videos. I'm usually just so tired by the time I get home from work that I don't feel like doing it, and then other times my whole family is home and it's hard to make videos when they're here. So they're all sleeping, and so I thought it'd be a great time to pull out my camera. First one is Learning Not to Drown by Anna Shinoda. I don't know if I wrapped up this book. I think I didn't, but if I did, I apologize. This book is about a teenage girl whose brother has been in and out of prison. He has a really checkered past. He makes really bad choices, and her parents kind of make excuses for him a lot, and she's really affected by all the choices he makes, and it's a lot about how it affects her. And there's this kind of like a metaphor in the book throughout where I don't know if it would be a metaphor, but there's a skeleton that follows her everywhere she goes, and whenever things are mentioned about her brother or she's reminded of her brother, she sees her skeleton. He comes along with her, and I thought that was really interesting. You cannot get rid of the family skeleton, you may as well make it dance. That's on the first page. It was a really good book. I found it to be very, very interesting. Really a sad story, but very well done. Definitely more of a serious topic. Ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I got some interactive books from Amazon and read these. I really enjoy these books that are a little bit more interactive, that have a different format. The first one is Sheldon and Mrs. Levine by Sam Bobrick and Jolie Stein. This is a parody of a book, I believe it is called Griffin and Sabine, and it's all letters, so I guess it would be an epistolary book. It's very quick to read. I think it took me maybe 15 minutes to read, but what's really fun is there are these envelopes, and inside are letters, and you go through, and it is a story about a mother and a son and their correspondence with each other throughout the book. And I found it to be really humorous. I don't know the original book, so I can't vouch for how it does as a parody, but I found it to be very good, and also just kind of an interesting story. I actually had this book when I was in high school. I bought it at a bookstore because I liked the interactive elements, and I remember reading it, but I didn't remember much about it, and I didn't own it anymore. So when I saw it on Amazon, I decided to pick it up again, and it was good. Like I said, it's really, really a quick story. Like there's a birthday card, just all kinds of stuff. So this was great. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Another kind of interactive book that I found was Journal, The Short Life and Mysterious Death of Amy Zoe Mason, found by Christine Atkinson and Joyce Atkinson. So at first glance, it looks like a journal, which is the purpose. That's what it's supposed to look like. But it's actually a book, and it doesn't have interactive elements that you can like touch and feel, but it is a journal, scrapbook kind of format. It is about a woman named Amy, who, when the story opens, her mother has just died, and her husband has gotten a job. He's a doctor. He gets a job cross country. So he goes ahead to this place where he's going to live, and she stays behind with the kids until they can get out of school. And she finds a journal, and she starts just documenting her life in it. And so there are photographs, and there are, pictures and letters. and newspaper articles and things, and so the whole story is told in this journal form. I thought this book was really well done. I found it to be really interesting. It was very predictable, but it didn't really make a difference to me because it still was such an interesting story. And I honestly felt like I was reading a real person's journal. I had a lot of, those feels as I read this. Other thing I thought was interesting is because she's like writing in this vintage journal, so there's a lot of like vintage images and like old photographs that she's putting in, things like that. I found that to be very creepy. It gave the book a really creepy feel. I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I feel like vintage pictures and images have a little bit of a creepy feel. That's my opinion, but I do feel that way. So it just, along with the story and the pictures, it was very creepy and it was really good. It was really well done. So I enjoyed this quite a bit. It was another really quick read and I ended up giving it 5 stars. I read Waiting for Morning by Karen Kingsbury. I received this from Blogging for Books in exchange for an honest review. It took me a long time to get through this one. And I think part of it was because it's a sad book, really sad. And it isn't the fastest moving. It is about a woman whose people in her family are killed in a car accident by a drunk driver, and it's how she copes afterwards. I'm trying not to spoil really anything. And it deals with other people and how it affects them. I have mixed emotions about this book. First of all, it was very well written, very easy to read, really well written. But the main character, Hannah, was so infuriating. She really frustrated me to the point where I didn't want to read the book anymore because I was so frustrated with her character. I don't usually have issues with characters one way or another. I don't usually love characters so much that like I would be sad if they died. And I don't usually hate characters so much that I get really angry. But in this book, I really did get angry with the main character. I don't know if that was the author's intention, but I think it was a good way of showing how people grieve and how people aren't perfect. It is a Christian fiction, and it did have a really good lesson at the end. It was extremely predictable though. Not my favorite book in the world, but I don't usually like sad books, so I think that was part of it too. I don't enjoy sad books. I don't even know why I requested it. I think I requested it because I've never read Karen Kingsbury. Her books usually have really high reviews, and she is a very good author, but I don't think I'm her intended audience because I just don't enjoy this type of book. So I at least gave her a shot, but it just wasn't for me. I did end up giving it 4 stars because it was really well written. It did have a good message, but it was not an enjoyable read for me. I really had a hard time rating it because of that. One of my favorite books of the month from October, of the year even, is Pretty Girl 13 by Liz Coley. I am not going to say a lot about this book because there's so much to it and I wouldn't want anyone to be spoiled, but it is about a girl who goes on a Girl Scout camping trip. And she goes missing, and 3 years later, I believe it's 3 years later, she just comes home and she has no recollection of the last 3 years. She thinks it's still that time. And wow, this book was so good, and it provided a lot of insight into things that I wondered about. I'm trying to be very vague, but I just felt like it was so insightful and so interesting, and it also had some twists and turns and surprises, and it was just amazing. This is definitely going to be in my top 10 for 2015. I'm so glad I read it. My only regret is that I didn't pick it up sooner, and this is a 5-star for sure. I highly recommend this. I got it from Book Outlet. I don't know if they still have it, but if they do, I would totally recommend that you pick it up, especially if you like psychological thrillers, those kind of books. My other favorite book for October is Welcome to the Dark House by Lori Faria Stellares. Loved this book so much. This was kind of like just a fun, kind of cheesy story. It's not really cheesy, but it kind of reminded me of those kind of campy horror movies. It's about a girl who has she's had quite a past in her life, and she signs up for this contest. She gets an email to go, you send them your worst nightmare, and if they choose you, you go to this movie producer's like set to watch, like to meet him and to get a sneak peek of his new movie. He makes scary movies. It's a really hard plot to explain, but it makes sense as you read it. And when they get there, some strange things happen. There's a lot of other characters, and each chapter is from that character's point of view. This book was just so much fun, and as I was reading it, by the time I got to the middle, I knew I wanted to read the second one, so I ordered the second one from Amazon, and I do have it. I'm gonna read it hopefully soon, but this just was really, really good. The imagery was done very well. Like, I was able to picture everything very easily, and I just found it to be a great story. So I gave this one 5 stars as well. At the very end of September, I read Frostbite by Rochelle Mead, and this book was not as good as Vampire Academy, in my opinion. I think a lot of people, the majority, disagrees with me. It seems like people think this was better than Vampire Academy, but I didn't enjoy it as much. And now I don't even really remember a lot about what happened. I'll have to like read the synopsis, but I just know it wasn't as interesting to me. Now I've heard book 3 is when it really starts to get good, so we'll see, but it was just okay for me. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I also read Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. I was so excited to pick this up. First of all, just because it's a different format. It kind of looks like an IKEA catalog. It's about this store named Orsk, which Orsk is kind of just like IKEA, but not. But it's like a knockoff of IKEA, and even in the book, they talk about IKEA and how this is like a cheap version of IKEA. And the main character works at Orsk, and late at night she's to stay because some strange things have been happening. In the morning they notice strange things, so they want to see what's going on at night. I don't know, this book was good, but it wasn't as good as I thought it would be. It was kind of scary, but it got really strange. It went in a direction that I just thought was really strange and just wasn't my kind of story. I did enjoy the atmosphere. I thought it was very interesting, and it did get very creepy. At first, I didn't think it was gonna be creepy because it really started out pretty normally, and then it started to get really kind of dark and creepy. There was just something missing. I kind of felt like things weren't fleshed out enough with the background story or something. I don't know. There's just something about it that was missing for me. But it definitely wasn't a horrible book. I'm really glad that I did buy it and read it, and I'm going to keep it and probably read it again at some point in October because it's a great Halloween read. I ended up giving it a 3 star. I didn't love it, didn't hate it, kind of just liked it. And I read The Dead House by Dawn Kurtagich. This one might get me into a little bit of trouble because this book is very well loved so far. I have heard very few negative reviews of this book. And the first thing I want to say that I liked was that this format of this book is just simply awesome. It is completely 100% like diary entries and like video clips and notes and interviews. So there is no like traditional book in the story. It's completely told by this diary thing, which I thought was really, really cool. I love that. I love the cover. I love the inside part of the cover. Love it. Those were my favorite things. I liked the concept of the story about the 2 girls, and one gets the night, one gets the day. That's what the story is about. It's about as far as my likes go. I wouldn't say this is a horrible book. What I want to say is that this is just not the book for me. I tend to avoid books that deal with witchcraft, voodoo, like possession, demons, anything like that. That's just out of my comfort zone. It's out of my personal what I want to read about. And this kind of dabbled in that a little bit, and it started to go in that direction, and I didn't like that. And then I just felt really uncomfortable reading it, and I just had a really hard time connecting to the story. At page 120, I thought I might DNF it, but I was still curious to find out what was happening and what the background of the story is and what was going on. So I kept going, and I ended up DNFing it completely at page 282. So I almost got to the end, but I just got to the point where I just was not enjoying it. I was kind of uncomfortable reading it. It just isn't the book for me. So I wouldn't say don't read it. I just didn't like it. So I'm not saying like it was horrible, and I didn't give it a rating because I don't feel like it was the book for me. So I really can't rate it. So I hope that helps. It's kind of a weird review, but I don't know. Like I said, it's just completely out of my comfort zone. I didn't expect it to be going in the direction that it did, but there's a lot of stuff in this book that kind of made me feel uncomfortable, so I DNF'd it. Last book I read, I have a photo of, and that was Creepers by David Morrell. I don't have the book anymore because I have a friend, it's actually my husband's best friend. He loved, when we were in high school, which I think this is illegal, but he loved going to abandoned buildings and just like looking around, like urban exploration. And so this book is about that, and so I loaned it to him. I don't think I'll get it back, but that's okay because I think he would enjoy it. So I gave it to him. We ended up meeting him for dinner a couple weeks ago, and I just gave it to him to read. Anyway, it was a very good book. It's about this group of urban explorers who are going to this hotel that is in a town in New Jersey, I believe. I can't think of the town's name, but it described the history of the town. It was like a booming place at one point, and now it's kind of abandoned and forgotten about, which I found that really interesting, and I ended up Googling that and reading about that more just because it was interesting to me. Anyway, there's this hotel. It's a fictional hotel, but it's in this town, and it's built like a pyramid, and this very wealthy man who had agoraphobia lived there, and he like boarded up all the windows. This was a long time ago, and they're going to demolish it. So these urban explorers are going to go to it, and it's really hard to get into. You have to go underground to get into it. So they go, and there's a reporter that goes with them because he wants to just write a story about it. And when they get there, some really creepy things happen. And the book is called Creepers because I guess another term for urban explorers is creepers, which I've never heard of.